We're approaching now 21 years since the passing of Eddie Gilbert. You, of course, were the last person he worked for in North America. Well, I shouldn't say North America, in the United States of America.
Well, in the continental United States.
The continental United States.
And Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And, you knew Eddie from when you were a kid and from when he was a kid, both of you shooting ringside, of course, him being the son of a wrestler and you just being a huge wrestling fan. What are your memories of, the early days when you first met Eddie, and what was he like at those shows as just a teenage wrestling fan?
Well, actually, Eddie was, I think, pretty much exactly 1 month older than me. So we were both pretty much the same age. And Eddie kind of did the same thing on the other end of the territory as I was doing up in the northern end in Louisville, is that he went to the matches, obviously, with his father, Tommy, from the time he was young. And he got a camera, started taking pictures and sending articles into the wrestling magazines. And so he was kind of shooting from the Memphis end, and I was up in the Louisville end. And when he got older, I think the first time I met him, probably we were 16 or so, he was able to get out of school in the summertime and come make some trips with Tommy. And we were at the WFIA, the Wrestling Fans International Association conventions in Knoxville in 78 and Memphis in 79. And that was right before he started wrestling as a pro when he turned 18. And, Eddie, he was a great kid. He was, once again, really well-mannered and polite and loved wrestling. And, was obviously his father's biggest fan in the world. Tommy was a great talent here in the Tennessee territory for years, a great wrestler, unheralded in a lot of parts of the country because, he traveled, he made appearances in West Texas for the Funks quite a bit because he reminded me of Dory in the ring. The Gilberts always idolized the Funk family, and Tommy wrestled a lot like, especially in his younger days, a lot like Dory. And Tommy had some good runs in Florida, but primarily he wrestled in the Tennessee territories. And, he was a great talent, at whether it be a tag team wrestler or a single. So Eddie was his biggest fan, followed in his footsteps. And Eddie's first spot really in Memphis was in the father-son tag team with Tommy. So, yeah, we had known each other for a long time. And that's why I was, particularly sad that we didn't get to work together longer in Smoky Mountain. It was a time where Eddie was on the outs with the Memphis territory, which he got on occasion, and he was home in Lexington, Tennessee, and I heard that he was just, he was sitting at home, and I said, my God, he's too good. He's on the other side of the state not to use him. And I called him and asked if he would come in and be partners with this big kid that Dutch Mantell had recommended from Puerto Rico, who wanted to get out of Puerto Rico. His name was Glenn Jacobs. We called him Unabomb back then, but he later became Kane. And I wanted Eddie as the smaller, loudmouth, great promo and great worker to lead this big, huge, giant rookie and be a team. And he came in and made the first TVs, and then he got a chance to go and take the book in Puerto Rico. And so that's how Al Snow eventually came in and became played the part of Eddie Gilbert as partners to Unabomb.
Now, obviously, you had this relationship with Eddie because you had known each other since you were kids. And, in many ways, you guys were similar in that you started out as huge fans. And, you both became bookers at a young age and had a lot of opportunities from the creative end. Eddie had a little bit of a reputation after he left WCW, well, maybe even before then, but specifically after he left, as being a wild card, someone who would pull his own angles or walk out or do all sorts of things. Did you... When you approach him about coming into Smoky Mountain, I know you and him were both at the NWA tournament in November of that year, November of 94, shortly before that, because I was there for Dennis Carluzzo. But when here's your friend you've known for years, do you have to have a conversation with him and just say, look, Eddie, I know you've done a lot of these things, don't do it here. I'll kill you. Like, how do you approach that?
Actually, I took a more positive tone to it because, I could understand a lot of times, and believe me, and as time has gone on, I understand when you're a booker and you care about your product, you get cranky with people when they start fucking with it.
Right.
And this was well after he had parted ways with Happy Heyman, when Paulie kind of jacked him out of the ECW thing. So I just told him, I said, Eddie, I don't care who gets the credit for this as long as we draw some money. So I really want you to take a hands-on approach, hands-on, with your own angle and whatever we do here, please feel free, pitch ideas, come up with shit. We will do it. I'm not going to be stingy about that. I want you to feel good about what you're doing. So we had that understanding, and really he made one TV, so it didn't go far enough that it became, an issue. Of course, then, to be quite honest, the way I found out that he took the book in Puerto Rico was when I found out he was booking in Puerto Rico. He never actually called me and told me he was never coming back. But that's the one thing I wish he'd have stayed in Knoxville, because you can't get into nearly as many things in Knoxville as you can in Puerto Rico, and things may have been different.
Something I've always wondered about, I guess it's not really a run because it's the one taping he had with you at Smoky Mountain, is that his promos, especially the first promo he cuts when he comes in, it seems like he's kind of playing off the rep he had at the time, because he's acting very fidgety and paranoid, but it's clearly a put on. So, was that your idea? Was that his idea? Where did all that come from?
No, whatever he did was his thing. I told him, I gave him the premise. Here, you're coming in with this huge, masked guy as a partner. Do your thing. Cut promos. We're coming up on a big event in Knoxville where, a month from now, where you're going to make your debut, and the rest of it was whatever Eddie wanted to do. And I will say I think that Eddie had been in Philadelphia for so long that he tended to do a little bit more for smart fans than what was necessary in Knoxville, because there weren't that many, and we certainly weren't playing to them. And maybe that was just because the last high profile spot he'd had has been in Philly, where everybody was smart then. But otherwise than that, no, I didn't tell him to do anything otherwise than go out and cut promos and have a couple good matches.
I mean, it is kind of interesting because it shows that he was very self-aware of how people were seeing him at the time.
Oh, yeah, I think he knew. Yeah. Well, I would imagine he read everything that was written about him and kept up. And so, yeah, he definitely knew what was, what people were thinking or saying or whatever. And that's why I thought he would really work especially hard, because he would have a point to prove. That he could still get things done, even if people thought, sometimes people think I'm insane, and I probably am, but, not in the way that they think. So I thought he would, really dig in and show, hey, you stupid assholes, I can do this shit. And he probably would have if he'd have stuck around.
Did he ever talk to you about, going on the internet to get feedback and stuff like that? Because that was something I had no idea he did until I was researching the article I did about him for Fighting Spirit last year. That first it was Terry Sims who told me, and then Terry also pointed me to the interview he did with Joe Pedicino on his podcast, saying that, that very early internet, when Eddie was booking Global, he would go online under a pseudonym to try to get feedback about the Global shows and then use that in his booking.
I didn't know that. To be honest, till the day I closed Smoky Mountain Wrestling down, if you'd have said the word internet to me, I would have gone, what the fuck are you talking about? I'd never seen a computer at that point in time. The first computer I think that I ever saw was when my girlfriend / wife at the time got one when we were in Connecticut, I believe, because but I didn't know. I knew Eddie would read the sheets. Everybody read some of the sheets that wanted to stay in touch with who was wrestling where and what was going on, but I didn't know he went to that length.
Had you been a member?
But yeah, no, I'd never seen of, heard, or of, give a shit about the internet. When I first encountered it, it was that deal where you had to get online or get on the phone and dial it up and everything. I thought, who is ever going to do this shit? This is fuck. It was always too much trouble. It's still too much trouble for me. If I, unfortunately didn't have to use it to communicate with other people and do shit that you got to do, I wouldn't have a computer in my fucking house. I'd have more books. I'd have room for more books and things to read where you really learn things.